SWEP presents an interview on forest health with Eli Ilano.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So, my name is Eli Ilano. I am the forest supervisor for the Tahoe National Forest. And the Tahoe.
What is a forest supervisor?
So, I am responsible for everything that happens on that national forest. Everything from fire prevention and fire suppression to recreation and trails and everything in between. All
What was the first thing that got you interested in forests?
well. When I was in high school, I kind of had I developed these three life goals that have kind of stuck with me. The first was to be a rock star. That one hasn't happened yet. Um, the second one was to save the world from the destruction of humans. And so, we're still working on that one. And the third was to love someone that loved me. And that one has happened. I've realized that one, thankfully. So I decided in college to really start pursuing that number two goal as my career. And after college, I joined AmeriCorps. And one of the professors that talked to us talked about the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley and how it used to be this lush, fertile place in the world, one of the most fertile places in the world. And humans, because they didn't manage it properly, turned it into a desert. And so that really got me interested in land management and water management. And I've pursued that ever since. And
What is the current condition of our local forest?
um, the Tahoe National Forest is a very big place. 1.2 million acres is a large place. So, as you can imagine, some places within the forest are healthy and others are not as healthy. Um, and it really depends on where in the forest you are and what's happened in that particular place over the course of the last 150 years. Some places on the forest uh, have been managed in a way that has led them to be not as healthy. Other parts of the forest have been managed in a way that leaves them in a pretty healthy condition. And when I say healthy, I mean that the ecosystem is generally functioning properly. It's providing wildlife habitat. The water coming off is coming off in a naturally functioning way. And
Does a dense forest equal an unhealthy forest?
now some people wonder, well, why is that a problem? Can you really have too many trees? Well, you can imagine on 1 acre of land, 1 acre of land can only sustain so much life, so many trees, so many animals. Uh, so, so there are some places where there are too many trees for the amount of resources that are available to those trees. Also, you can imagine when trees are closer together, if one of them catches on fire, it's a lot easier for that fire to spread from one tree to the next tree very quickly. And we saw a lot of that happen just this past summer across the state of California, where fire was spreading very, very rapidly from tree to tree to tree to tree, from brush to brush to brush to brush. Um, also, what is the problem with too many trees and not enough resources? What happens? Well, like any living thing, that living thing becomes weaker. It goes into a weakened state, so it's more susceptible to disease. It's more susceptible to um, insect infestation, and it's more susceptible to drought, to heat. All of these things tend to uh, stress that tree and potentially kill those trees. And you can imagine if there are a whole bunch of trees, that's where we get these massive die-offs of trees because none of them have enough resources. They're all fighting for too small a pot of resources. So those.
Why are today's forests more dense than the forests of the past?
when our country was being formed and people were starting to expand out and move into places where Native Americans had lived before, the Native Americans lived on the land a little bit differently than we did. And they moved, they were in this area, in the Sierra Nevada, they moved seasonally from place to place. They didn't root down into one place. So if there was a fire, and oftentimes the Native Americans would set fires in the fall to improve the health of the forest. It wasn't a problem that there were fires because it wasn't threatening their homes, their structures. When European Americans and Mexican Americans started moving into the Sierra Nevada, their form of living was to build homes and to be stationary, kind of like we are today. Most people have a home of some sort and they live in it year round. Well, when that started to happen, fire was incompatible with living that type of lifestyle. So people started putting those fires out. They started asking the Forest Service, as an example, to put out the fires as soon as they started, even if they were naturally occurring and even if they were healthy. Now, those fires previously had kept the forest at a better equilibrium, the right number of trees. Um, all of a sudden, that you take fire out of that equation, and there's nothing to keep that equilibrium. There's nothing to keep the right number of trees on a particular acre of land. And so for the last 150 years, that's primarily what we've been doing. When a fire starts, we immediately try and put it out. Well, that has led to more fuels in the forest, more small trees, more brush that then, when a fire does happen, creates a bigger, more intense fire that's harder to manage.
What does the Forest Service do to protect our forests?
Well, one of the things that we really look at is we go to different places in the forest that appear to be in an unhealthy state, and we try and imagine, well, what would this look like if it were in somewhere in that natural range of variability? How many trees in this area should there be on each acre of ground? And what types of trees? Is this primarily a pine dominated forest, or is it primarily a mixed conifer, meaning, firs and cedars and pines all mixed together? Is it an oak type of forest? And then we try and design a treatment to make it look something like what's in that natural range of variability. And when I say design a treatment, it means something like, well, how many trees of what type should we generally have in this spot? So, if you look around here, and this is my backyard, you can see that things are fairly thinned out. And one of the things that kind of, if you're walking around the forest and you're wondering, well, is this a healthy place or a not healthy place? You can imagine, well, can you ride a horse through it? What would happen if we lit a fire on the ground in what, a bush or something? Would it immediately rise up to the tops of the canopies of the trees and spread, or would it stay on the ground and just go maybe from bush to bush until it came to a patch of bare ground? So there are a lot of things that we can do to design and make the forest into a more healthy condition. Now, some of the things that we do, so sometimes we remove trees. We're typically removing a lot of those smaller trees that have come in since we started suppressing fires that are really creating that hazardous, stressful condition in the forest. And we remove them either by hand, by using chainsaws, or by machine, using different types of machinery. And then, really, our ultimate goal is to get the forest into a condition where we can reintroduce that natural equilibrium creator fire. So that's really one of our goals is to create a situation in the forest where we can then safely reintroduce fire in a very controlled manner.
How does cutting down trees in a forest help?
So these two trees were surrounded by little fir trees. I can show you, I don't know, can you see that? There are a whole bunch of little fir trees around here. And these big, huge old growth cedar trees were dying. A lot of their branches were losing greenness. A lot of dead branches coming down, and so we took out these little fir trees from all around them, gave them more sunlight, gave them more access to nutrients, and now they're really starting to thrive.
What can students do to help the forest?
Yeah, well, obviously, the best thing to do is to always start where you live, what's closest to you. So, if you live in on a piece of ground that has forest on it, you can walk around and look at that and use some of those um, those approaches that I kind of talked about. What would happen if a ground fire started here? Would it go up the tree? Do you have a lot of little trees that are going to take that fire and take it up to the canopies? Would you be able to ride your bike around or ride a horse through the forest near your house? Those are really small things, but anything within 30 feet of your house, if you live in a house, even if you live in an apartment building, anything within 30 feet of that apartment building or that structure should be cleared of almost all vegetation, because that creates a 30-foot safe zone buffer around your house. And then beyond that, you start thinking about the types of things that I've been talking about. um, if you want to get more involved in broader forest management, you can look at a career in forestry or wildlife biology or any of the disciplines that help us figure out what creates a healthy forest and what we need to do to our existing forests to make them healthy.
What do you love about your job?
So everybody finds some passion inside your heart that really drives you. It could be art, it could be music, it could be skiing, it could be math, it could be writing. For me, like I said, trying to figure out how we can save this planet, continue the healthy functioning of this planet and still live here. That was like one thing that's been with me since I was in high school, and I really feel like as part of my job I get to do that. I get to try and make this place that we've been given, planet Earth, a healthy place for both today's generations and future generations.
Coming next fall, Nevada County Art Council's Forest Fire exhibit. This lesson on forest health is part of a larger program called Forest Fire that would not be possible without our sponsors' excellence in education.